Let's talk a little bit about bluff catching. It's where you call a river bet with a marginal hand. You're trying to catch your opponent on a bluff. A marginal hand could be a wide variety of things depending on the situation, but let's think of it for now as top pair with a weak kicker, or maybe second or third pair with a strong kicker. We'll first go through a hand example where we reveal the many nuances of bluff catching, and then we'll sketch a diagram to discuss general theory. In our hand, we'll be in the big blind, and we'll get dealt ace-10 offsuit. And our villain is on the button. He open raises. We don't know what he has. Small blind folds. It's a heads-up pot. The flop gets dealt 10 of spades, 9 of spades, 2 of clubs. We're out of position, first to act, and we bet here to protect against draws and to get value from our top pair top kicker. Our opponent reacts by calling. Let's take a moment to think about what that means for our opponent's potential holdings. We'll sketch a hand range for him. If you don't know what hand ranges are, check out our video on the topic. First, let's look at hands that he might have, that we beat currently. He certainly could call with a weaker 10, 10x. He could also call with middle pair, excluding two pair hands like 10-9 and 9-2. Probably the biggest part of his range is any two spades. If he's a good loose aggressive player, it's very conceivable he raised any two suited cards in the button here. Let's now look at hands that he might have that beat us by the flop. Over pairs to the board, jacks through aces. A made set, so 2s, 9s, and 10s. We'd be way behind in this situation. And he could, of course, have 10x and 9x, where he has two pair on the flop. So the action continues to the turn, and we see a 5 of hearts. Because of his call on the flop, we're actually minimizing the chances that he has one of these hands that beat us. It's sort of unlikely that he doesn't try to build a bigger pot on such a relatively scary flop. It's got two straight cards, two flush cards. We really think he's on a draw himself. That's the biggest part of his range. We're certainly not eliminating the hands that have us beat. And then we're probably neutral on marginal hands for him like 9x and 10x with a worse kicker than us. So we do what we did on the flop. We bet both to get value from our top pair top kicker and to try to price out flush draws and straight draws. Our opponent oddly calls again. So in a very big way, that further reduces the proportion of his range that are jacks through aces, sets, and two pair hands. Now the river comes out 6 of clubs, another blank card. It doesn't really connect with any of the range that we've sketched for our opponent. So what do? Well, we've thought we were ahead the whole way in the hand. And if that's true, we don't gain anything by betting. At this point, the flush draw didn't get there. And if our opponent has middle pair, 9x, or a weak 10, he's going to fold. We're not going to get any more value from a bet. Occasionally, he might call with 10 with a decent kicker. But let's look at all the hands where he has beat. So admittedly, he's played over pairs and sets and two pair hands quite oddly in our example, very passively. So we really don't think he has these hands. But certainly if we bet, he's going to call. I mean, these are really strong hands on this board, and he might even raise. So we won't even get to showdown. We decide to check. Checking with the intention of calling when he bets. And he does indeed bet. We call, and this call is the bluff catch. He doesn't necessarily have a bluff, but we've given him the opportunity to bluff. And he shows jack of spades, queen of spades. So indeed, he had a bluff. We gave him the opportunity to bluff it, and we caught his bluff. We effectively bluff catched. Now, of course, sometimes when he bets that river, he's going to have us beat. But again, the reason we check called was to widen his betting range, to include, instead of just hands that beat us, hands that are bluffs. And like we said, based on our hand reading, we think almost all the time he has busted flush draws. So we give him the opportunity to hang himself. Let's talk about bluff catching in general now. Anytime you get to the river, you'll have a range of hands that your opponent might have. At the far end of the spectrum are his nut hands. Full houses, nut flushes, sets, depending on the situation, whatever almost certainly wins the pot. And at the other extreme, we have the bluffs. Basically, he's just playing the board when he bets. He doesn't even have ace high maybe. And of course, bluffs are highly situational as well. You can imagine a situation where top pair, top kicker is effectively a bluff based on the board texture. Now, most opponents, when they bet on the river, they either have the nuts or the bluffs. And we call this a polarized betting range. It's actually quite appropriate if you think about it. When you first start as a poker player, you probably only bet your nuts on the river. And this is highly exploitable. Basically, your opponents will just fold whenever you bet the river. And to balance your river betting range as you get better, you'll start polarizing it. You'll bet bluffs as well, so that your nut hands get called occasionally. The reason you balance your nut river bets with bluffs is to preserve the value of your middle strength hands, your marginal hands, because these are hands that if you get raised, you probably have to fold and you don't feel good about it because in showdown, you're thinking you might have won, but it's just too expensive to call. With a bluff, if you get raised, you fold it, no problem. So this is the cheapest, most effective way to balance your river betting range. If you think you're against an opponent who has a polarized river betting range, understands this idea of balance, you can bluff catch. You can call with any hand in between. So these are the bluff catchers, BC for short. To remind you, a bluff catching hand is one that's not strong enough to lead with your own bet because it's going to force a fold from would-be bluffs and it's only going to get called by better hands. Bluff catchers are hands that are made for the check call because they induce bluffs from your opponents.